Rainbow Reflections, Book 2, Put Out the Fire. Chapter 5, Magic in the Air. September 6th arrived at last, bringing students to the school. Older students took their belongings to their rooms, while newer students went through a series of magic assessments. The tests took place each day until school began the following week, allowing the students to try connecting with their magic multiple times if it failed to show up the first day. Zin stared at the sky as several birds flew by. They were too far to see any distinct colors, but the sight of the feathered creatures swooping about lightened Zin's heart. The sun shone brightly overhead, the heat of summer gradually fading as autumn arrived. Everything felt perfect. Today is the day, they thought. Today I get my magic. Zin would be facing the magic assessments once more. They dreaded the test their first year. Even now, as they stood in the courtyard and listened to Hyaktu talking to the new students about the assessments, they could feel their heart picking up speed. What if they didn't pass again? What if their magic still had yet to show? It won't come to that, Zin thought firmly. I'm 15, magic comes in by then, and now that I've been on testosterone over a month, I can connect to my magic since I'm not as dysphoric. They focused on the 4 mighty cauldrons lined up behind Hyaktu, just in front of the wide pond. Red, yellow, green, and blue. They each held their respective elements within. Zin could make out the flickering flames over the rim of the red cauldron. I have air or fire, Zin told himself. But that might not be entirely true. My birth chart could be off with my moon sign. I might be water or earth instead. I need to try every cauldron. I must get my magic. Hyaktu clapped his hands together, startling Zin out of their trance. Who would like to go first? He asked. Zin darted forward. Me! Let's just get this over with. Hyaktu nodded. Zinovis Saihan, the rest of you follow Mr. Jihan to the garden behind you. As the rest of the new students shuffled after Khurshid to the northern garden, Hyaktu placed a hand on Zin's shoulder. Are you ready? He asked in a low voice. I hope so, Zin muttered, keeping their eyes on their pointed shoes. Hyaktu nodded. The first test is to move your whole body and think of pushing your magic out of you. Zin sighed. I've been trying that every day, but nothing's happened. Do it again, Hyaktu encouraged. Zin nodded. They were soon bounding about, doing martial arts strikes and kicks as they imagined shooting fire from their fingertips or throwing waves of air about. After a while, Hyaktu stopped them. Move to the second test with the cauldrons. Zin nodded and approached them slowly, coming to a stop in front of the yellow air cauldron. They looked inside the cauldron, though it was, of course, empty. Air wasn't visible, unless an air magician was powerful enough to make it so. They took a step back and closed their eyes, trying to imagine creating a strong wind from the cauldron. Using their martial arts knowledge to their advantage, Zin shot one knee up into a high crane stance while the other leg remained rooted to the ground. They pushed their arms above their head like 2 upward blocks. Opening their eyes, they hoped to see, or at least feel, something. But there was nothing. Don't give up yet, so it's not air. Big deal. Zin therefore moved to the next cauldron they believed their magic to be. The fire lapped at the air hungrily in front of them. They came to a halt before the red cauldron, then sunk in a square stance. If I have fire magic, I'd be like a tiger, powerful and ferocious and aggressive, so a tiger claw should do it. Zin turned their waist rapidly until they were in a left bow stance, the right hand thrusting in front of them. They curled their fingers at the end of their strike unconsciously, having drilled it so often that they didn't need to think of the movement. They had instead focused on pushing the fire back, commanding it to move in time with their palm. Did the fire flicker? Zin's eyes widened in disbelief. I have to try that again! They therefore turned to the other side, thrusting a left tiger claw instead. They kept their mismatched eyes on the flames the entire time and...
What are you doing?
Zin lost all concentration at the sound of that annoying voice. They glanced up to see C3 standing several feet away, rolling a suitcase behind him as he clearly made for his room in the student quarters. Zin hadn't seen him since the hoverboat fiasco, and they didn't care to see the boy now. He was dressed in his typical black suit robe, the left sleeve tucked in the gold-painted ring at his elbow. He straightened his red tie as he observed Zin coldly. What do you mean? Zin grumbled, not in the mood to put up with him.
You already have magic, so why are you doing the magic assessments again?
C3 sneered.
Or have my theories been correct, and you've never had magic in the first place, hormonal blocking potions or not?
Hyaktu hurriedly stepped to Zin's defense. Zin is seeing if they have another magic, he said. C3 narrowed his eyes, one blue and one green, in suspicion, but he walked away with his upturned nose in the air without another word, the suitcase clicking along the stone behind him. Zin looked at their father nervously. But I don't have air magic. How am I ever supposed to explain that? I suggest you try the air cauldron again, Hyaktu said softly. Try all the others, too. Zin nodded, returning to the fire cauldron. They were sure they'd seen the blaze flickering when they'd done their strike. More than normal, at least. But before they could try to connect with the element, Ren arrived from the direction of the Tai Chi studio. Oh, are we allowed to see if we have a second magic? She asked Hyaktu eagerly. I don't see why not, he replied, but you'll have to wait your turn. Zin scowled over their shoulder at their family, then faced forward again. Yet now they could barely concentrate on the flames, and when they did a strike, nothing happened. Sighing, they went to the earth cauldron next, but they weren't able to make a connection there either. They tried water and air again, but to no avail. The frustration built up inside them. They still had no magic. Let's try the third test, Hyaktu offered. I'm done, Zin snapped. It's hopeless. They turned on the balls of their feet and hurried away from the group, humiliated and hurting. The next day arrived, Zin reluctant to get out of their hammock. They stared up at the ceiling with glazed eyes, wondering if they should bother trying the assessments again. I'll never get my magic. Not in time for school this year, anyway. My body is taking too long to adjust. They sighed and hopped out, nearly tripping on a pillow that sat beneath the hammock. Zin kicked the pillow away bitterly, where it hit one of the many shelves lining the orange-painted walls. A few stones on the shelf fell to the floor with a clatter. Whoops. Hope I didn't wake up Ren. Zin moved to pick up the fallen rocks, placing them back on the shelf in their precise order. They nodded in satisfaction once the stones were organized, admiring the many colors. Their eyes landed on a green rock, the image of Mint springing to their head, as the stone was the same tone as Mint's hair. I wonder if Mint ever had any trouble in the magic assessments. They're always so anxious about everything, and they have trouble connecting with magic on a regular basis. Maybe they can help me. Filled with a fresh excitement, Zin called out their morning greeting, no longer caring about waking up everyone. They hurriedly got dressed in their typical fashion, throwing on a bright blue robe with swirling wave patterns to top it off, then ran out their room and down the spiral steps of the tower. They crossed the family room on the first floor, went through the Tai Chi studio, and entered the courtyard. Then they slid to a sudden stop as a thought hit them. Is Mint at the school yet? I didn't see them arrive yesterday, Zin realized. I guess I'll look in the student quarters. Maybe they have the same room as last year? Zin glanced down at their feet and realized that they were standing on a stone slab. The elevator, which sat right outside the Tai Chi studio, was one of 4 around the courtyard. The enchanted platforms brought people to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors of each building. Second floor, Zin commanded. Railings appeared on all sides of the elevator, preventing them from falling off as it hovered in the air. Soon enough, the platform stopped outside the 2nd floor. The front railing went down, allowing Zin to open the door and enter. Zin hardly went to the student quarters, not having much need to. Each floor of the western, northern, and eastern buildings looked the same. A large bathroom sat across from the door upon entering the quarters, and a hallway was dedicated to student rooms. The rooms each held a bed, wardrobe, and desk. Of course, students were allowed to bring their own furniture and other belongings, too. Their room was on the left, right? Zin shrugged and bounded down the hall, glancing around as they went. Most of the doors were labeled with the students' names, though some were blank as they had no occupants yet. At the end of the hall, Zin slid to a stop, catching sight of Mint's name to the left. They grinned and knocked on the door. Mint, you in there? They called. A moment later, the door opened, and Mint blinked sleepily around. They smiled at seeing Zin standing before them. Hi, Zin. What are you doing here so early? I wanted to see if you could help me, Zin said tentatively, all too aware that Mint might panic at the thought. Mint's green eyes widened, the shoulders rising. Oh, with what? Just advice, Zin said hastily. Mint let out a sigh of relief. Oh, good. Advice I can do. Maybe. I don't think I'm the best with advice, but I can try. They stepped aside to allow Zin into their room, then closed the door. Zin glanced at the art and posters that were already hung around the walls, mostly depicting animals and creatures. A large bag of clothes sat on the ground, the wardrobe on the left wall half open to show that it was barely filled. A desk sat in front of the window overlooking the courtyard, while a bed sat on the right wall beneath another window. "Ooh, cool, you got a view of the greenhouse?" Zin asked, rushing forward to look out the window over the bed. "Yep, an upgrade from my room last year. So, what can I do to help?" Mint asked, picking up a blue bracelet from the desk and putting it on her wrist, signaling to Zin that she was identifying as a girl. "Well, since your magic can be hard to connect to," Zin began hesitantly, "I was wondering, how did you get through the magic assessments?" "Wait, didn't you have magic last year?" Mint asked with a frown, sitting on her unmade bed. "Oh no, I forgot she didn't know anything about me not having magic." Yeah, I did, but I'm having a really hard time connecting to it since I started the testosterone potion," Zin lied. "Dad wants to make sure I can connect to magic before I start school again." "Oh, that makes sense," Mint said with a nod. "Why don't you try a wand? The wand should help you connect. That's how it is for me, anyway. Actually, I can't do magic without a wand at all. I never earned the body channeling certification." She dropped her gaze as she fiddled with her thumbs in clear embarrassment. "If I didn't have my wand, I'd be useless." Zin had no idea how to reply, an awkward silence falling for a moment. Then they said, "But we can't use wands in the magic assessments, can we?" Mint shrugged. "I don't know. We couldn't have wands as first year since there's no point giving us a wand if we didn't have magic yet." "So how did you get through the magic assessments?" "Your dad had to do a miracle with my family," Mint said in a small voice, closing her eyes. "My parents were so afraid I wouldn't be able to come to school, since my magic was very sporadic. So they asked Mr. Saihan if he'd accommodate me. They knew the assessments would make me too anxious to perform. He agreed, and I was able to do a bit of magic while he watched on the mirror. So he let me in, and I never had to do the assessments." "Oh." Zin frowned, tapping their foot on the ground as they thought. "Well, I guess I could always sneak my wand into my pocket, in case it's not allowed. But if Dad adjusted the assessments for you, he'd surely allow me to do the same. Thanks, Mint." Mint smiled at them. "I'm glad I could help. Wait, I did help, right?" "You did," Zin said, their grin widening. Mint sighed in relief. "Oh, good," she murmured. The bell rang loudly, signaling the start of breakfast. Zin exited Mint's room while she got changed from her pajamas, then the two went to the eating hall together. Ren and Sorella were already in line, so Zin and Mint joined them, ignoring the first years complaining about them cutting. The four students ate together in the western garden, chatting until the magic assessments were set to begin. Zin nearly forgot to go back to the tower to retrieve their wand from their room. The wand still sat on their desk. It had once been decorated with vines and carvings, but the vines were long dead. Zin discarded them, then inspected the carvings. They depicted each element, the sun, and the moon. Zin ran their finger over the etched marks, trying to build a bond with the wand again. Once they stuffed their wand in their pocket, they returned to the center of the courtyard. Hyaktu, Khurshid, and the other students were already gathered, listening to Hyaktu's usual speech about the assessments. There were less new students this time, as most of the soon-to-be first year showed up on Moon Day. Zin volunteered to go first again, after making sure C3 wasn't around. Hyaktu allowed them to step forward and face the cauldrons once more. "This time, instead of focusing on the element," Hyaktu said, "try to focus on being the element. Be as agile as air, as sturdy as earth, as fierce as fire, as calm as water." Zin nodded, approaching the fire cauldron first. They gazed intently at the flames, fingering the wand inside their robe pocket. They grasped the wand firmly in their hand, then muttered fiercely, "Make this fire big and strong!" They had no idea if the wand would be effective in their pocket. As long as they weren't creating their own fire, they supposed it would be fine to control the element in front of them, but nothing happened. "Be like the fire. Make this fire fierce and wild." The fire continued to flicker in front of them, unchanged in size. "Try a different approach. Make this fire small." The fire did seem to shrink for a moment before it flared up once more. Was that Zin's doing, or the light breeze that had drifted through the courtyard? "Make it vanish," Zin uttered, trying not to be too loud that Hyaktu would hear behind them. "Make it vanish." There was no doubt about it. The fire had definitely gotten smaller, and no wind had come through to stir it that time. "I did it!" they cried aloud, the fire flickering below the rim of the cauldron. Hyaktu stepped forward, frowning. "You put it out?" The fire had indeed appeared to vanish. Zin hurried over to the cauldron and peered inside to see only charred wood. The blaze had completely gone out. "I did it!" they repeated. Hyaktu frowned thoughtfully. "Well, that's most unusual," he finally said, scratching his head. "I haven't ever seen a student do that before." "But I did it," Zin pointed out, trying to keep the doubt pushed away. "Right?" Hyaktu nodded. "Yes, you appear to have fire magic." Zin hopped in the air excitedly. "I have fire magic! I have fire magic!"